Subir no olho da aroeira para tirar uma abelha que se chama Lipua, que se chama Lipua.
Hey, I'm Emily.
I'm Kate.
I'm Lydia.
And I'm Maddie.
And this is Following Ley Line, a podcast,
an invitation
to explore the world through music.
Episode 1, where we talk about the origins of Ley Line,
how we came to be, and where we're all from. When we travel, we like to slow down. We like to steep ourselves in culture, get to know the people, communities, and traditions that form the music and the art that live there. So when we got the opportunity to tour, to travel around together, 4 women, 4 musicians, united by music, a lot of interesting conversations came up.
We would just get a lot of questions about our songs and where they came from and what they mean.
So we began recording this podcast back in February of 2020.
We were on our very last tour before the start of COVID. Little did we know how the world was going to change.
So we found ourselves in the coziest little cabin house in Boulder, surrounded by mountains and snow, and that's where we recorded the first episode.
And now we're sharing our stories and our conversations with you.
So we are in Boulder, Colorado right now. We are finishing up a 2-week tour that's been pretty amazing so far. And we are staying in the house of a dear friend. It's a beautiful, I think it's almost about 150 years old. Wooden floors, wooden ceiling, oil-lit lamps, artifacts and old photographs, and there's snow outside and the mountains behind us.
So let's start with, what does ley line mean? We get that all the time.
Yeah, that's a great question. Ley lines to me refers to this geometric pattern that when it's laid over the earth connects places of historical and geographic significance. So think ocean rifts and mountain ranges and the Great Pyramids and Stonehenge and this kind of mystical way of thinking and navigating the world. And we kind of adopted it as our name to talk about how we intuitively move through the world using music and sound as our guide.
And in the same way that the body has chakras and energy points, the planet has those same places, and ley lines could be this energetic pathway that connects those places and also what connects us and pushes us to move and travel in the way that we do.
Well, I think we should tell our origin story, because that kind of ties in to ley lines and how they brought us all together. So it started in 2013. My name is Lydia. I was visiting my twin sister Maddie in Durango, Colorado, and her bandmate at the time was going to the Telluride Bluegrass Festival, and I really wanted to go see Lake Street Dive. So I went with him on a whim with like a backpack and a sleeping bag, and that was it. And we showed up at night, had no idea where we were going to spend the night, and we ran into his friend who said, "Oh, I think you could probably sleep on the front lawn of my friend's house." And that friend was
a co-worker of mine at the farmer's market in Austin. And this is Kate. And I had just gotten back from Brazil with Emily, where we took a trip together in 2012 and came home and went to the Telluride Bluegrass Festival, ended up staying inside Patrick's house. And we came home one day after the festival and met Lydia.
So after a few magical days in Telluride, Lydia kindly invited us back to Durango on our way home, since we knew we'd have a long trek, and of course we didn't make it out until nighttime, so it was a wonderful offer. And we showed up to Maddie's house in Durango, Colorado at about 3 a.m. and wandered our way into a house full of sleeping people and found some space on a living room floor.
And we really just hoped that we had wandered into the right house, because when we got in, it was the middle of the night and we had no idea. We just were like, well, I hope that this is right. We'll find out in the morning.
And that's where we went to sleep and woke up to a wonderful group of people, including Maddie and Lydia, the next day.
Maddie, what did you think when you woke up with these 2 strange girls in your house?
Well, I don't think Lydia had told me this was going to happen, but it was a somewhat typical thing to wake up to people you didn't know sleeping. And I think I was like, oh, look at these nice ladies. And we all like maybe cooked a meal and did some yoga. And then we decided to go to these hot springs that are like an hour out of town. And we all camped out and we sang songs all night. And then we woke up the next day and sang songs.
I remember the first song we sang together was Alma Não Tem Cor. Should we sing a little bit of it?
Alma não tem cor, porque eu sou branco. Alma não tem cor, porque eu sou negro. Alma não tem cor, porque eu sou branco. Alma não tem cor, porque eu sou negro. So Kate and I kind of became closest of friends when we decided to start a trip through Brazil. And I had been traveling throughout Latin America, started in Colombia for about 8 months. And it was very serendipitous conversation, Skype call with one of my best friends. Kate was living with him and happened to walk in the door. And that was when we made this idea to meet up in Brazil. Earlier in Chile, I had run into these girls that called themselves Perota Chingo, and they sang all kinds of folklore music from around Latin America and the world, really. And it was incredibly inspiring to me. And so after meeting them, I just kind of had this dream to meet someone. And so about 3 months later, in
2012.
Yeah, May of 2012, Kate and I met in Rio de Janeiro and started playing music, and that was just one of the songs that I loved that Perota Chingo sang. And so yeah, we ended up singing that all together.
So fast forwarding to the hot springs, we're singing this song, and Maddie and I are learning these lyrics in Portuguese, and we're talking about our goals and dreams and how we would love to use art and music as a way to connect people. And I distinctly remember thinking, that's so cool that there's like these twin flames out there that have the same passions that I do, and they're gonna go spread goodness into the world, and I'll probably never see them again because I never plan to go to Texas.
But yeah, what happened next was Kate and Emily went back to Austin, and my punk band Cactopus had played the biggest show that we thought we could play in Durango, so we decided it was time to move to Austin, Texas to make it in the big time. So I was like, I'll give it a shot moving to Austin just for a little while and see what it's all about. And this is in
2014.
Yeah. And I sent Emily a message on Facebook and was like, oh, I met you a while back. I'm thinking about moving to Austin. Any chance you know someone I could live with?
Yeah, meanwhile, I had returned to Brazil to finish my last semester of college, and Kate came to do some ceramic work, and it brought us back together, and we continued making music. And I think we both remember that moment where we were like, oh, Maddie is going to move to Texas, and we're all going to get back at the same time. And so it felt kind of like it was meant to be. Yeah, and from that point on, it just naturally evolved into a trio formation. And it was always sweet, but definitely experimental, exploring what and how other people could add to what we were creating.
So when we were back in Brazil in 2014, Emily had finished school in Belo Horizonte and joined me to live in São Paulo. And we met up with somebody who offered to record and tape this song that I had written while living in this old house on this big piece of land, like kind of totally by myself. And it turned into something really beautiful. We started to kind of film this music video and got the song recorded. And when we came back home, it was incomplete. And I had recorded vocals on a friend's track and really got along with the engineer, whose name was Seth Gibbs. And he said, I'd love to work with you again. And I said, well, I've got this song that's kind of incomplete, and I've got this really amazing bassist who we'd love to feature on the song, and is there any way that you could work with the tracks that we have? And he was like, of course. And so we started going over there. We recorded The Wolf.
Took the long way home. I've got to get.
When the song was over, he was like, well, what else you guys got? And we're like, okay. Well, we're all songwriters. I think that's a really interesting part about Ley Line, is that each of us have our own flavor of songwriting. And in field notes, you can really hear it.
I didn't really see quite where it was heading. I was just like, wow, this is such a lovely opportunity to record these songs and take our time and come over when he was available and spend a night at the studio with wine and pizza and just record. And then ultimately it was like, oh, now we have an album.
So during the making of this album, I, Lydia, was living in Montreal, and I was studying the talking drum, and I was coming down to Texas every now and then to visit my sister Maddie, and I came in winter of 2016, and I get the chance to go to Seth's studio and listen to what the girls have been working on. I'm listening to The Wolf, and the girls are like, yeah, but it's missing something. Do you want to add some percussion? And I realized that the rhythm I've been learning for the past couple months on the talking drum fits perfectly into the song. So I ended up recording percussion on a couple of the songs on Field Notes, and next thing I knew, we were releasing our first album, touring from Austin, Texas to me and Maddie's hometown of Ithaca, New York. And the rest is history. We've toured around the country together, we've been to Brazil, we've got a lot of adventures to share with you, and we're so excited to see what 2020 will bring.
You gotta face whatever you gon' meet. So that wolf and I, we matched up our strides. What a
Thanks for listening to this episode of Following Ley Line.
In the next episodes, we'll talk about the stories and inspiration behind the music on our album, We Saw Blue.
closer to our fate.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can dive deeper into the songs and get an exclusive premiere of our visual album dropping May 14th. And remember, we're always just a message away on Instagram at Ley Line Sound.
Right left, right one foot, closer to our fate, to our fate.